Hello, I'm Greg Harradine. In this video, I'm going to discuss how I composed Fantasia on a View of Goatfell. This is the fourth of my Caledonian Portraits, and I'm going to discuss how it was inspired by this amazing painting by Peter King. Before you watch any further, please do just take a second and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Peter King and his work. Peter is a painter, based, as of 3 years ago, on the Isle of Arran. Peter studied at Glasgow School of Art in the early 1970s, and then taught art and design in Scottish schools for over 30 years. In 2010, he retired from teaching to focus on painting professionally. The sources of Peter's ideas are the seasonal effects of nature on the surrounding environment. Colour and the tactile qualities of paint are essential to his painting style. The marks, free paint and the textured shapes become field, wood and sky. When I was looking for artists to be involved in my Caledonian Portraits project, I came across one of Peter's paintings, Autumn Reflections Arran, and I was immediately captivated by it. The bold brush strokes, the vibrant, confident use of colour, the combination of sky, woodland and water, it grabbed my attention and simply would not let go. I was lucky enough to interview Peter via Zoom to find out more about him and his work. Here's a short clip of Peter talking about Autumn Reflections Arran.
There's a beautiful spot on the island where the kind of river kind of enters Brodick Bay. And in the backdrop, you have Goatfell, which is the kind of largest peak on the island. But it was one of those beautiful autumn days where the light and the colour was crystal clear. The quality of the colour was quite magical. And that's what I try to capture in the painting.
I'll now try and share a few of the methods I used in attempting to encapsulate something of Peter's painting in my piano composition. Since Goatfell dominates the background of the painting, I wanted my melodic themes to have a strong rising and falling pattern, like the slopes of the mountain, perhaps suggesting a feeling of walking up and down such slopes. One example of this is from bar 65. Practically all of the melodic material rises then falls, or falls then rises. Another example of some miniature melodic mountains can be found in bars 127 to 137. As for the left hand, well, it doesn't feature many melodic mountains. Instead, its role is to provide a brisk, rhythmic ostinato, which aims to capture the energy of the painting, the brightness and immediacy of it, the uplifting feeling of walking up a mountain on a crisp autumn day. I'll let you in on a little trick I use sometimes when I don't know how to start a piece, which in fact happened with my Fantasia. I took the name of the mountain in my painting, Goatfell, and the first letters of each syllable, G and F, became the first two notes of my piece. If only composing was always so simple. It's an incredibly basic idea, but even two notes can be a fantastic spur to creativity, I find. It's also pleasing to think that Goatfell has its very own musical signature in my composition. One idea I had, which didn't come off at all, is that initially I thought I would try to compose something that was really pared down, using very little in the way of musical material, because this is generally how Peter approaches his own paintings.
I try to say a lot with very little. I'm instinctively drawn to painters who are very economical with the brush, but they have this wonderful gift where they can say so much with almost nothing. I suppose you could say it's very true of musicians and great composers.
Yes.
You know, work in a similar vein.
When it came time to actually compose my piece, I found Peter's painting to be so vibrant and absolutely bursting with life that I couldn't help but compose something that was also bursting with life. I suppose rhythmically speaking, there is a certain simplicity to the piece, but as far as harmony and melody go, there's quite a lot going on. Although my Fantasia is written in the key of F major, it modulates to a variety of other keys and uses all 12 notes of the chromatic scale at one point or another. Since Peter's painting employs some bold colour choices in the yellows and oranges, I didn't want my piece to remain in the opening key of F major for too long. I wanted to bring in other harmonic colours, some warmly complementary and others a little more startling. The first hint of this is in bar 5, where the slight surprise of the B natural, which should be a B flat in the key of F major, is my first nod of the head to Peter and his bright and vibrant yellows and oranges in his painting. There are significant sections in my piece in the key of D major or D Lydian, also in E flat major and E flat Lydian, and it also features a section in the key of C major. The main theme returns to this key of C major later in the piece. My melodic ideas are reflected through these different keys and modes, just as the View of Goatfell is reflected in the water in Peter's painting. Even though my piece is in the key of F, there are very few instances of a root position F major chord. I count only about 4 or 5 in the whole piece, which is over 200 bars long. Hearing a root position tonic chord often gives the listener a feeling of returning home. And if you're out and you see a great view in nature, or indeed if you see a great painting, you don't want to return home. You want to keep experiencing what you're experiencing. So I think this is why I tried to avoid these root position tonic chords as much as I could. At the end of my piece, there is a short battle, you could say, between two chords, D major and F major. Will we finally get to hear the tonic chord properly at the end of the piece? Or will it end with the more unusual flavour of D major? Had the colours in Peter's painting been a bit more subdued, or had the brushwork been a bit less vibrant, perhaps F major would have triumphed. But since that is not the case, it had to be D major. Before I end this video, I want to share a little more of my conversation with Peter. Here's Peter discussing a common problem that creative people can encounter.
The biggest problem I find as a painter is, and I do it all the time, the hardest thing to learn is when to leave it alone, when to stop.
Okay, yeah.
You really try to get a freshness and a kind of sharpness in the work that you only get with experience and lots of disappointments, you know. For everyone that works, there may be another 6 line in the studio, which, you know, have been rejected.
Yes, I see. Yeah, well, I understand that. How do you know when to stop? I mean, yeah, how do I know when one of my compositions is finished? It's tough.
It is.
And I agree with you about simplicity. I think my best works are some of the simpler ones. I'm very guilty of often trying to put too much into the music, and then it's too busy, you know.
Yeah, it's a mistake I think we all make. We try to be too clever, whereas the trick is, in my view, experience teaches you. Leave it alone, walk away from it, and start another one. You know, but just know when to leave it alone. Because it's cleaner, it's sharper, it's crisp, it's more spontaneous.
Have I put too much into my Fantasia? Should I have walked away earlier? You'll have to be the judge. Let's hear Peter talk a bit more about his artistic method.
The way I work was, I do a lot of walking and cycling. And I carry notebooks with me, and a digital camera. So I'll make a record and I'll take a photograph. I'll make a note in a book about certain kind of color combinations. But when I get back to the studio and you start to compose the painting, I suppose, it becomes something else, because as a painting, it's basically, it's a kind of a harmony of marks, color, trying to be very kind of expressive, spontaneous, but somehow just trying to capture the quality that autumn has out here. The combinations of light and color are spectacular. And autumn, as I said to you earlier on, it's a particularly favorite time of year. I love the mix of color that you find, reds and greens that just shouldn't sit side by side, but they do. And
yes,
in nature, they work. The paintings are not realistic, as you'll be aware. They're not realistic. They're kind of semi-abstract.
yes.
You know, they're kind of an impression of what you see and what you remember.
Let's return to Peter one more time and hear about the inspiration he gets from his local environment and what he's trying to achieve with his paintings.
Where I live on the west coast of Arran, I face Kintyre. So your skies are vast. It's a vast panorama of mountains, sky, and sea. And particularly in the winter, when you get these magnificent colour combinations and sunsets, it just looks as though someone has passed a brush across the sky.
Amazing.
You look at it and it is amazing. It's stunning, and you keep asking yourself the question, my God, I wish I could capture that in paint. How do you get that down? And sometimes the results are dreadful. I mean, they're experiments. I mean, they just look dreadful. But there's the odd occasion where you stand back, look at the canvas, and you think, yes, there's actually something there. Yeah.
Yes.
I suppose really that's what I'm trying to do all the time.
I hope this video has provided an insight into Peter's work and into how I composed my Fantasia on a View of Goatfell. If you're a pianist, you might perhaps be interested in acquiring the sheet music for my piece. I'll leave a link to that in the video description. To find out more about Peter's work, you can visit his website, peterkingartist.co.uk. Please do subscribe to my YouTube channel, and if you like what I'm doing, the best thing you can do is to become a supporter on Patreon. My patrons receive a range of rewards, including the sheet music and audio of my new compositions every month, the chance to vote on aspects of my future compositions, and much more. I'll leave all the important links in the video description. I would also like to thank Creative Scotland and my Patreon supporters for funding my Caledonian Portraits project. Until next time, goodbye.